What's up, rock stars in the Burnout to Badass Facebook group? Welcome to our latest episode. The most powerful prison is the one you don't know you're in. And I'd like to introduce you to my lovely partner and the founder of Move, Think, Smile, Elia Fosharon. Elia, how are you today?
Hello, everybody. Doing great. Took a super awesome brisk walk this morning. It was freezing in Charleston, at least for us, but it was wonderful to be outside and just, get some fresh air. Feeling good.
And we are coming at you live this morning to talk about, a really crazy topic. We've been reading a lot of stats recently, and this morning is going to be really filled with a lot of concrete numbers from legitimate organizations, right, that are publishing these studies. And it's really kind of crazy when we get out there. And I think what I want to just kind of start with are a few numbers, Elia, if you're cool with that. And let's just dive right in. You ready?
Yeah. I want to make sure we preface this with, we're going to be talking and saying the word stress a lot today. And if you haven't heard us say this before, burnout is really just the result of chronic levels of stress over a long period of time. So we're not talking about just having a bad week or a bad day. We're talking about years of stress, which leads to burnout. So they're kind of one and the same when we're talking about some of these stats that are really quite shocking as far as what's happening with stress and really our decay.
Right.
So Adam, jump right in.
Right. So that's really interesting that you started off with that. And I think that if we get into, the Mayo Clinic, right? If you look up burnout, the Mayo Clinic is saying in the medical, in the healthcare industry, they're saying burnout is not a clinical medical condition yet.
Yeah.
And the reason they're saying yet is because burnout encompasses more than just one problem, right? More than just one diagnosable mental problem, and it's accumulation of things that are messing with your head and they're messing with your body. Typically, the two most common ones are anxiety, fear, worry, overwhelm, all that kind of stuff, worrying over the future, what might happen. That kind of puts you into a place where you lose confidence and you're so worried about making the wrong decision that you just don't make any decision. And then there's things like fatigue, and fatigue encompasses all kinds of stuff. It's another umbrella too, right? So you've got exhaustion, tired, body aches, headaches, all that kind of stuff that goes down through there. And then you've got the anger, the resentment, the guilt. So the reason burnout is not a medical condition yet is because it encompasses so much stuff and it's different for every person. But the side effects of burnout are universally becoming the same across the planet. And that's what we want to get into.
Yeah, and it's funny because it would actually be better if stress was like some kind of exotic flu or some kind of named illness that needs a cure, because part of its insidiousness is the fact that it is so generalized and yet it can level us so quickly. And so that's really kind of fascinating when you think about it. It's like if we had a more legitimate term for it and really, defined it in so many ways, we might say, oh yeah, this needs a cure just like cancer or just like, other illnesses like diabetes and things like that.
Right, exactly. Oh, and before I forget, guys, if you guys have any questions, you can pop them down in the comments below. We can see you and respond to you live. If you look up in the description above this video, before we get deep into it, you're going to see a little link to a place called Ecamm. That's the software that we use. And because we're in a private group, we need to get your permission in order to interact with you. So if you click on that link real quick, give us permission and you can post and we can see who you are. We can answer your questions. So feel free to pop in anytime and ask anything you'd like. Yeah. So, Elia, I think the big stat right now is what's been flying around for a while comes from the World Health Organization, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, and the World Health Organization says that stress is actually the epidemic of the 21st century. The epidemic of the 21st century, and that basically 3 out of 4 of us are struggling with burnout.
Now let's qualify that. 3 out of 4 people with full-time careers.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
3 out of 4 people, that's one away from everyone who has a full-time career, is suffering burnout at some level. That means that there are more than one symptoms going on. right?
Mm-hmm.
There's at least one mental symptom and at least one physical symptom going on.
Yeah. And what's fascinating is again, when I was doing a lot of this research and really looking, what is also really interesting is, in this group, we're really talking mostly about, work stress and burnout, but a lot of people have been asking me, well, what about, caregiver burnout or marriage burnout, or, now you're seeing all these different qualifications of burnout depending on what is causing the most stress in your life. And I think that that's also a really fascinating and interesting segmentation that's happening with burnout.
Right. Well, I think what is blowing my mind right now is the research that just came out of Harvard and Stanford,
Mm-hmm.
right? And they're saying those people who are burning out are living up to 33 years less.
Yeah.
Those suffering burnout are living up to 33 years left, even with our modern day healthcare. That's astonishing.
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
the average, if lifespan is, let's call it 90, right?
Mm-hmm.
What is that? 57?
Yeah.
That's crazy. And that's
Yeah.
because and why is that, Elliot? What is stress doing to people?
Well, stress is affecting us so much on a physical level. I mean, you've got people, I hear this all the time, people going to the hospital because they think they're having a heart attack and they find out they're actually just having a panic attack, which, a panic attack is no joke. I mean, you feel like you're about to die. And this is kind of like the first sort of warning signs, too. I mean, people start having these experiences and then they start getting high blood pressure and then they actually really start having heart problems, not just anxiety, or they start having diabetes. And the thing is that stress causes inflammation through your entire system. So if you are genetically predisposed to, say, heart disease or diabetes or other cancers, stress is going to come in there and basically fuel the fire of those diseases. And so that's another big reason why we're seeing so much in these illnesses that are, keeling us over, basically, and stress is really fueling a lot of it.
Right. And it's not just, and so you've got the cortisol factor, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which there are studies all over the place that talk about how bad cortisol is in massive doses. I don't know if you know
Yeah.
this, but cortisol can actually be good for you in the
Yeah,
right
absolutely.
at right times. But most people are living in a pool of cortisol almost 24 hours a day.
Yeah.
And then what ends up happening is then you start making, I guess I would call it poorer lifestyle choices because you start taking on coping mechanisms. So a lot of times the first one is going to be alcohol is involved to try and chill out just for a little bit at night, which always disrupts your sleep patterns. I don't care who or what tells you how beneficial drinking red wine is. The negative effects on your sleep pattern, even after one glass of wine, outweigh the positive benefits of drinking red wine, period. Also, there's stress eating. And typically when you start stress eating or you start reaching for energy foods, right, your brain starts going for more processed stuff. All that stuff causes inflammation as well, more inflammation-based foods, right? And then, of course, you're not recovering properly because you're not getting to sleep at night because you're tired but wired. Or the sleep you do get isn't kind of deep theta sleep. It's, it's a lot. It's kind of more in that alpha realm. You're not really getting what you need. What else is in there? Even though you might be exercising, which we know a lot of people, we've watched a lot of professionals get out here who seem to be super fit, but are really, really struggling. And they actually are dropping like flies too, which is scary.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of, that stat right there, 33 years less. So this is kind of why we're talking about the most powerful prison is the one you don't know you're in. So let's keep going on here. I think one thing that blows my mind again is the money that people are spending every year.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah, we see, the stats are a little bit all over the place on this, but basically we're looking at anywhere from $15,000 to above $20,000 a year on coping mechanisms. And some of them are obvious and some not so obvious. But, you look at, stress is gobbling up a lot of people's hard-earned money.
Right.
Because they're doing all these things just to try to maintain high levels of output of work. But that's costing them. So they're spending money to maintain high levels of work so they can make money and then just spend it again on keeping that whole cycle going.
Yeah, so let's break this down. So yes, 15 to 20 grand or so on coping mechanisms. And coping mechanisms also includes stress management, right?
Yes.
So you've got the obvious things in there like therapy, medications, counseling, and then the not so obvious, like you're eating out more than you need to be because you just don't have the time anymore. You're eating more comfort food. You're drinking more. You're doing more. Not to say yoga is bad, but yoga is now a $6 billion industry because of stress. And while it helps to relieve the pain, it doesn't fix the problem. And then when you pile on the out-of-pocket healthcare deductibles, because 80% of all doctor's visits are due to stress and burnout, then you're topping in, you're looking at professionals, executives, and business owners, career-focused people are spending $25,000 on average every year to deal with this stuff just so they can live up to 33 years less. Right?
Yeah, it's kind
ridiculous.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
That's ridiculous. Oh,
yeah.
And go for it.
I was going to say, which is why, again, we keep saying, the most powerful prison is the one you don't know you're in. And this goes back to stress is so insidious in this way. It influences so much of what we're doing, but it does it in such a, what's the right word? In such a kind of unknown way. It's kind of like maybe people who smoke or, it seems like the health repercussions of that isn't that big of a deal if you just smoke, if you're just looking at it over like a 1 day period, but you start to add that up over years and years and years and years and years, and you can see the effects. And that's often the most dangerous thing for us is when we can't see those immediate effects right away, right? It's like if we were super stressed out and we were immediately knocked down, that would really make us change the way we're doing things. But since it's such a slow progression, it's really easy to decide that a high level of stress is normal and that it's okay.
Right. It's kind of like what you were telling me this morning. We were walking around. You're like, it's like the frog in a pot of boiling water, right?
Yeah, the old adage of, if you put a frog in a pot of cool water and, slowly boil him, he'll never jump out because he doesn't realize that the temperature just keeps getting hotter and hotter. But if you actually put him in a pot of boiling water, he'd jump right out and be like, get me the hell out of here.
Right. So he's in a prison and he doesn't even know it, right? And he's being just being smashed to pieces, basically.
Yeah.
Then you add on top of that, so you've got your lifespan is decreasing, money is being spent. Oh, and let's not forget the free time, right?
Mm-hmm.
So on average, when clients come to us, they're losing at least 3 hours a day, and a lot of times more. And we're talking about free time, right? They're losing 3 hours a day. They get off the clock, and either they're still working, or they're trying to manage all the crap, or they're just dealing with fires. They're always running around, never getting anywhere, and it seems like there's emergencies everywhere, right?
Yeah.
That's 1,080 hours every year, and if you translate that into days, that's 45 straight days burnout is taking from you.
Yeah, that's a month and a half,
straight days.
Basically.
Yeah, so if you're like us and you like to get outside and and explore the outdoors and have adventures, guess what you're not doing?
Yeah.
Right? You're not experiencing life. And guess what else you're probably not doing? If you've got a family or a spouse or a significant other, you're probably not having the positive impact that you want to be because you're releasing that 3 hours a day. Right?
Yeah.
You're losing it. And that's just, I think that's absolutely crazy.
Yeah, another couple stats as well that will probably blow your mind. But if you look at it from a more global perspective, or actually just in the U.S., again, there are a little bit differentiating numbers on this. But again, the numbers are high, no matter which study you look at. And, one book that was published called Unhealthy Work actually says that, stress has exploded into a $1 trillion health epidemic, and that it's actually more expensive than the cost of cancer, smoking, diabetes, and heart disease combined, and that it costs employers $300 billion a year for all of the stress-related and healthcare and missed work, which also means that when they broke that down, they realized that 1 million people will not go to work in one day due to stress-related issues. They don't feel well, they weren't sleeping, they're depressed, they're anxious, they just had to take the day off. They couldn't come in, they were sick.
That's absolutely crazy.
Yeah.
That's absolutely crazy. And so when you start looking at, and the people who don't fix this, there are some really, really, I mean, not that you're not living, right? And your lifespan is probably going to be much shorter than what you had planned on it to be. There are some complications along the way that we're seeing, happening, right? And one of them is with divorce.
Yeah.
Of those people getting married, 40% of all marriages end in divorce. And here are the real stats, guys. A 2-day divorce trial costs $25,000. Now, if you've got a contested divorce, then that's usually $54,000 per side. That does not include the alimony, the child support, or any of the other splitting of assets, or any of the legal battles if that's extending out. That's 40 out of 100 people are getting divorced who get married. Of the 60 people who are left, what the stats are showing is half of them are having a marriage that is not fulfilled, right? And are just living with an unexciting marriage, or even a stressful marriage, but they just don't know what to do, and they don't know how to get out of it, and they don't know how to, and they try silly things like, I don't know, date nights and buying flowers and couples therapy, and it's just not working. Right?
Yeah, the way it reaches out into other areas of our life is really kind of sad to see a lot of the stats. One that really hit me was that kids, if parents' kids are super stressed out, that kids actually have a higher percentage of bullying due to that environment of high stress. And of course, there's all sorts of other dysfunctions that start to happen because, of course, kids are patterning how their parents deal with stress. And the studies of teens and even youth being affected by anxiety and depression are at staggering, highs. And that depression by 2020, they're saying, is going to be one of the most biggest reasons for hospitalization. And, it's really just, we're sharing a lot of these stats with you guys because we want you to really wake up and realize the prison that you are in. And sometimes, we won't take action for ourselves, but we will for our kids. We feel inspired to really, show them the way and to help them. And I think right now we have to really realize that we have a serious issue right now. I mean, kids are learning about the importance of algebra and the importance of, some of the history topics and things like this. And yes, those are important, but we need more stress education for kids and for adults. And they're not getting it in schools so much. So it's really up to us to manage our own stress, to learn about it, and to share that with our kids as well. Because again, stress is a cycle. It's a cycle in your own life. But if your kids are watching you, they're going to cycle through the exact same thing. And that's extreme motivation for a lot of people.
I don't think people realize that a lot of times that, if you do have a family with your children, and if you're living in the same house, you've got a family and a marriage, you're watching your kids grow up without you. Mm-hmm. Right. And you have to ask yourself, that's prison.
Yeah.
Right. That's a prison that I don't want to, I know it happened to me, and that's a prison no one should ever be in. I mean, period.
Yeah. And I think about the training that we did just the other day with our group, and we talked a lot about, how emotions are quite contagious, actually. And stress really and burnout can be quite contagious. If you've got a lot of stressed out, burnout people on your work team, it's going to affect the entire team. And you're probably noticing that people's, their stress, their anxiety, their depression, their anger, their frustration, it's catching. It's tough to work with someone that's really struggling with this. Mm-hmm. And, again, that's where they're seeing, a massive amount of turnover. Companies are seeing a massive amount of turnover. They're burning through people left and right, or people can't handle the toxic environment of where they're working. We hear a lot of people say, I went into this career because I'm passionate about this career, but I don't think I can actually maintain more than 5 years. There's just no way I can keep these levels up. And so, again, this cycle we're seeing it in every facet of people's lives.
Exactly. And another thing that we're seeing, the repercussions, like immediate repercussions. I mean, it takes a while for your health to go down, sure. You don't realize you're going to die early until it happens, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
The free time you have, you think you can power through it with grit and determination, all that kind of stuff. You can't, by the way. We've learned that the hard way. But more immediate ramifications that we're seeing are, the low productivity and confidence, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
when there's low productivity and confidence, a couple things are happening. One, you're not making $27,000 or more a year. That's kind of the average with a career-driven professional. Like if their productivity is low and their confidence is low and they're not going for that promotion or not going for a job change, they're not starting up the business or they're not getting out of a career or business that's sucking them dry, they're leaving $27,000 or more on the table. Or number two, what's worse than that, they're just losing their job,
Yeah.
right? They're either quitting it and not knowing where to go next, or they're actually being fired. And then worst case, and we know this one too, contractual business lawsuits. And that's where you're hired to do something and you're not able to perform based on the contract, and the people that you're working with, it could be your partners, it could be your employers, it could be a client, whatever it is, files a lawsuit because they're unhappy with your performance, and that ends up costing you on average $54,000 per side.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? That's prison all
Yeah.
over it.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. With burnout, like we said, you're not sleeping well. The stress and anxiety have got you, jittery. And so a lot of times we're making poor decisions at that point. When we're that stressed out, we're making poor decisions, which do often lead to lawsuits. We see, we've read a lot of stats about this in the medical field, especially doctors that are working insane hours, that just are, 14-hour days, 17-hour days, something ridiculous like this. And, they're performing these major surgeries, and it's like, you need to be well and feeling energized and healthy when you're in these spaces. And so, again, we really just want to jar you guys today in the fact that this is very real and it's important for you to take action. One thing that we're seeing is, we're asking ourselves is, why is stress and burnout and all this, why is it, it's bankrupting the nation basically. But why is there not more education? Why are there not more options? Why are there not more support within, the work organizations? If they're spending, $3 billion a year on trying to fight this problem, it's like, all right, what if we spent it really trying to educate and help people through this problem? And I have a theory that there are 3 reasons why this isn't happening. The first reason is that stress is thought to be normal and it's no big deal. This is the frog in the pot, right? We've all kind of gotten used to, it's just like high levels of stress. That's just how things are. Like, just suck it up. Like, stop being a wuss, Number 2, stress is considered a more personal issue with kind of, no effect on other people. And of course, as you look at it closer, it absolutely has an effect on everyone within your company, everyone within your family. It is not something that can be contained into the close corners of your mind and your body. It's going to leak out on other people. And number 3, there really hasn't been a social or political movement in general. I mean, we're seeing this happen now, but really, it hasn't been there like, say, fighting smoking or cancer has been. Because again, because stress is sort of this amoebic sort of thing, it's tougher, I think, for people to put their finger on it.
Right. Because it has so many different symptoms to it.
Yeah.
But it's the reality of what it's actually doing to your life in the short term, right? And the long term.
Yeah.
Your short term, it's causing some pretty drastic productivity, confidence, and just anxiety, right? And fatigue. And no one was born to live that way. I mean, this isn't your fate, guys, right?
Yeah.
You are in a prison. It's powerful. You probably didn't realize it. It's not somewhere that you have to be, and you can escape it. Burnout is not normal. And
Yeah.
if you let it hang out, not only is it affecting you, it's affecting everyone around you. And it can be stopped. Now, Ellie, I love the quote from one of our followers, Melissa Gordon.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have that one in front of you?
I don't.
It's
You can
okay. Let me see
share
if
it
I can
with
find
us.
it here. So many of us are suffering burnout and can't even tell what's going on, let alone find a way out. Totally exhausted. The pace of life and business is over the top. We're simply too busy and we're paying the price.
Yeah.
Guys, this is why we have this group, Burnout to Badass. This is why we created Move Think Smile. And that is to help you escape that super powerful prison you probably didn't realize you were in. Or maybe you do realize you're in it, but don't know how to get out of it.
Yeah, and don't realize the difference between good and bad stress because we've talked a lot about the bad versions of stress today, but there is good stress. There is stress that's actually good for you, but there's a big, big difference.
Right.
And again,
Right. Well, that's one of the things we cover. Your body actually needs stress to survive, but the problem is people keep choosing the bad stress and not the good stress.
yeah.
So there's a big difference. So guys, if you want to get out of that prison and you're not really sure how to do it, Elliot, what can they do?
You can go to movethinksmile.com/talk and you can book a call with us. Those calls are typically about 45 minutes and we just really dive in and figure out, what is truly burning you out because most of the time it's not what you think. And then really what would your life look like if you weren't burning out? What is it that you really want to create? I know that we talk a lot about the toughest kind of darkest parts of stress here, but again, part of that is we want to wake you up. We want to make sure that you really take this seriously and that you understand that you're worth more and that you're worth, stress not taking you down.
Right. And just to let you know, it's about a 45-minute call. It's absolutely free. And we're doing it to help you. And on the call, we'll talk about exactly what your home and work life would look like. Number two, exact steps you should take to become a badass superhero to your family and colleagues with enough free time to do the things you really want. And, what it is that you're really wanting to do.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
And
Yeah.
and a lot of people in LA, a lot of people are asking why we do this.
Yeah, so we do it because we've been there and we know how much it sucks and we don't want that for other people. This has really become a mission of, we want to help people stop this cycle and really give them their power back. And, quite a few people reached out to me when I was in a rough, dark place battling burnout. And I just think it's so important to be able to offer this to other people. And so it's, this is really, really key.
Yeah. And if you want to know more about Ellie's burnout story, she posted a video earlier this week. It's down below. And it's about, I think it's like 8 minutes or 9 minutes long. It really details, what she and I went through. And it's a really amazing video. I really encourage you to go watch that. And guys, if you want to get out of the office, conquer burnout, get 45 days back to get outside and start exploring the outdoors and start having some kick-ass adventures while being a superhero at home and work. We're talking about not sacrificing your family and career here, right? We're actually talking about making things better all the way around. Please come over to movethinksmile.com/talk. Book a call. It's going to be either Ellie or myself. We're going to chat with you for about 45 minutes on what to do next and what your life could look like. It's free. What have you got to lose?
Yeah, and in the meantime, feel free to post questions below, even if you're watching this live, after we've done it. Also, we'd love to hear any comments from you on what really resonated with you. If there's something that we said that just really hit home, write it in the comments because other people sort of scrolling through may read that and be inspired. You may really, change someone's day. Mm-hmm. So we really encourage you to do that.
Yep. And if you guys are listening to this on our YouTube channel or on our podcast, come on over to Facebook and join our Burnout to Badass Facebook group. We're the only Burnout to Badass people on the planet that I'm aware of. We're really easy to find. The links will be in the description as well. And until then, we'll see you guys in a few days for our next live. Right, Elio?
Yes, and it's Saturday, so get outside, enjoy the outdoors. Just, yeah, have a great time. Have a great day.
All right, guys, we'll see you soon.